This is Community Radio Networks. And today is Friday, the 17th of May. And we have all the information right here on Community Radio Networks, getting you ready to take on the day. And, of course, getting you ready for the weekend also. All information coming up right here, Community Radio Networks. And we'll start with the world news. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news, read by Shabnam Madgil. Storms battered Texas and Louisiana late last night and early this morning with destructive winds and torrential rain, leaving at least 4 dead. Roads flooded and more than 1 million homes and businesses without power as more floods today could plague parts of the Gulf Coast. At least 4 people died as the severe weather blasted through Houston, and violent weather left a trail of damage to buildings in Houston, blocked roadways with fallen trees and debris, and mangled power lines. Public schools in and around Houston are closed today as more than 825,000 homes and businesses across Texas and more than 172,000 in Louisiana have no power. Soaking storms shifting east today with more than 14 million people across parts of the Gulf Coast at risk of severe weather, including damaging winds, hail, and possibly tornadoes. A line of dangerous storms and flooding rains rolling over the U.S. Gulf Coast and have killed at least 4 people right here in Texas, precisely in Houston. And the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, is requesting a presidential disaster declaration for several counties in Texas. World number 1 player Scottie Scheffler was detained by police early this morning on his way to the PGA Championship following an incident with an officer outside the golf club. He was not involved in a separate traffic incident that ended in a pedestrian fatality. And this was breaking news this morning. Scottie Scheffler from Dallas has been detained by police in handcuffs after a misunderstanding with traffic flow led to his attempt to drive past a police officer, and the police officer attempted to attach himself to his car, and Scheffler then stopped his vehicle at the entrance to the golf club, and the police officer screamed at him to get off the car, shoved him against the car, and immediately placed him in handcuffs. He was taken to jail, charged with second-degree assault on a police officer, which is a felony, along with lesser charges of third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding signals from officers directing traffic. He is right now on his way to the golf course and should be teeing off very soon. World number 1 Scottie Scheffler, who is from Dallas, detained in handcuffs by police after a traffic misunderstanding ahead of the second round of the 2024 PGA Championships. And an 18-year-old dead after a small plane crashed after it ran out of fuel in rural Johnson County right here in Texas. This, of course, outside of Godley, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety. We also do have Texas Governor Abbott issuing a full pardon yesterday for a former U.S. Army sergeant convicted of murder for fatally shooting an armed demonstrator in 2020 during nationwide protests against police violence and racial injustice. He announced the pardon after the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles announced a unanimous recommendations that Daniel Perry be pardoned and have his firearms rights restored. The corruption trial of Senator Bob Menendez is off to an explosive start, with prosecutors saying the New Jersey Democrat was on the take from a cast of shady characters and lawyers for Menendez and his co-defendants, all casting blame on the senator's wife, Nadine, for any potential crimes. The 70-year-old has been charged with acting as a foreign agent on behalf of Egypt and assisting the government of Qatar, all while taking bribes from several New Jersey businessmen. Meanwhile, Nadine Menendez, his wife, who is facing charges along with her husband in a federal bribery case, is battling grade 3 breast cancer, and the 57-year-old will also have to undergo a mastectomy. Bob Menendez said his wife will require follow-up surgery and possibly radiation treatment, and he didn't include other details about her condition this morning. A pair of Republican-led House committees voted to advance contempt proceedings against Attorney General Merrick Garland for his refusal to turn over audio recordings of President Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur. The move is a major escalation in a dispute over the recordings between House Republicans and the executive branch that came after Biden asserted executive privilege over the files. With the NFL releasing its schedule this week, New Orleans will look ahead to one date in particular, and that'll be the 9th of February next year, as the Caesars Superdome will host this year's Super Bowl. For the 11th time in the history of the NFL, the Super Bowl will be decided in New Orleans, trying the league record for the number of times a city has hosted. Morehouse College's faculty voting in favor of conferring an honorary doctorate on President Biden during its upcoming graduation ceremony, where he's slated to deliver the commencement address. But dozens of faculty members either voted against the honor or abstained from voting amid frustrations with some of the president's policies and the school's decision to host him as its commencement speaker. And the motion to award him the honorary degree passed 50 to 38, with roughly a dozen faculty members opting to abstain from that vote. The Biden administration will speed up the immigration court cases of some single adults caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border under a new program that was announced as part of a broader effort to reduce illegal immigration in the run-up to the November 5th elections. Single adults with court dates heading to 5 cities, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York City, could be placed in a recent arrivals docket, and U.S. immigration judges will aim to resolve their claims for asylum in 180 days instead of a process that can now take years because of major backlogs. A U.S. Navy strike group's flagship aircraft carrier has left its Japanese home port, wrapping up nearly 9 years of deployment in the Indo-Pacific, where it served a key role in the U.S. effort to bolster defense ties with Japan and other partners in the region. The departure of USS Ronald Reagan, one of America's largest warships and a nuclear-powered Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, comes at a time of growing tension in the face of increasingly assertive China in the Indo-Pacific. Slovakian police have charged that man described as a politically motivated lone wolf with the attempted murder of Prime Minister Robert Fico, who is seriously ill in the hospital after this assassination attempt that shocked the Eastern European nation. He was conscious and able to speak, and according to his long-term ally and the Slovakian President-elect Peter Pellegrini, who visited him in the hospital yesterday. The U.S. military has said it expected around 500 tons of aid to enter Gaza in the coming days after an emergency pier was affixed to the shore in the territory. U.S. Central Command has said that the trucks carrying humanitarian assistance have begun moving ashore via a temporary pier in Gaza, and the U.S. troops went ashore out there. Speaking at a summit, U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres described the war in Gaza as an open wound that threatens to infect the entire region, adding that the only permanent way to end the cycle of violence and instability is through a two-state solution. Now, this is the first time that the bloc there has come together. All the bloc of the Arab leagues have come together since an extraordinary summit in Riyadh, capital of neighboring Saudi Arabia, and involved leaders from 57 members out there. This is the Arab League calling for a UN peacekeeping force in the Palestinian territories, even as Israel vowed to intensify its ground offensive in Rafah. And now this final statement coming in Bahrain following this meeting in Manana, the 22-member group called for international protection and peacekeeping forces of the UN in the occupied Palestinian territories until a two-state solution is implemented. 13 foreign ministers are warning Israel to halt the Rafah ground invasion. And Germany's news agency reporting that the foreign ministers from these 13 countries have signed a letter warning Israel to halt this invasion of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip and allow more aid to reach the Palestinian people. Israeli troops, meanwhile, fighting in the city center of Jabalia and directing airstrikes at targets. It is also said that Israel defended the military necessity of its Gaza offensive today. I beg your pardon. Israel defended the military necessity of its Gaza offensive at the International Court of Justice and asked judges to throw out a request by South Africa to order it to halt operations in Rafah and withdraw from the Palestinian territory. Spain has denied permission to a ship carrying arms to Israel to dock at a Spanish port, and Swedish police have detained several people and cordoned off a large area in Stockholm after a patrol heard suspected gunshots, they say, with the Israeli embassy located in the closed-off area. And one of the latest events in Europe to be hit with accusations of anti-Semitism, the Vienna Festival kicks off today with its new director, Milo Rau, urging that places of culture be kept free of antagonism. And the Asian Football Confederation gave its backing to Palestine's proposal to suspend Israel from FIFA due to the ongoing war in Gaza at its Congress in Bangkok, as the regional body also abolished term limits for its senior office bearers. The Women's World Cup will take place in South America for the first time after Brazil was chosen to host the 2027 edition at a FIFA Congress marked by debate about the onslaught in Gaza. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. is accelerating arms supplies to Ukraine as President Zelensky's military confronts a Russian assault on the nation's northeast. The U.S. has expressed its disapproval of China's stance on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin pledged a new era of partnership between the two most powerful rivals of the U.S., which they cast as an aggressive Cold War hegemon, sowing chaos across the world. And it is Xi Jinping who greeted Vladimir Putin on a red carpet outside the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. And he was hailed by marching People's Liberation Army soldiers, a 21-gun salute on Tiananmen Square, and children waving the flags of China and Russia. Ukraine appears to have launched its biggest drone attack ever, with reports of explosions at two major Russian ports. Russians, meanwhile, forces say they have seized over 100 square miles of Ukrainian territory within the space of a week, representing Russia's biggest advances in more than a year. President Putin said that Moscow's offensive in Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region aims to create a buffer zone, but has no plans to capture the city. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. And French police this morning shot and killed an armed man who was allegedly trying to set fire to a synagogue in the northern city of Rouen. Police had responded to a fire near the synagogue, and there have been actually two separate investigations that have been opened, one into the fire at the synagogue and another the circumstances of the death of this individual killed by the police. France has the largest Jewish community of any country after Israel and the United States, as well as Europe's largest Muslim community. And France was hit in 2015 by a spate of Islamist attacks that also hit Jewish targets. And there have been, meanwhile, isolated attacks in recent months, and France's security alert remains at its highest level. France is sending security reinforcement and essentials to its overseas territory of New Caledonia following days of unrest there in the country. The French High Commission said it was now a calmer and more peaceful situation, although overnight curfews and a ban on gatherings remained in place. 5 people, including 2 police officers, have died so far in that unrest. 15 European Union states want new ways to handle irregular migrants, including sending some to third countries in a demand made as the bloc plots out how to implement a recently adopted overhaul of its asylum rules. The 15 countries also want to see mechanisms to detect and intercept migrant boats and take them to a predetermined place of safety in a partner country outside the European Union where durable solutions for those migrants could be found. And these countries presented their joint stance to the European Commission, which was made public less than a month before European Parliament elections across the 27-nation European Union, in which far-right anti-immigrant parties are forecast to make gains. Austria, Bulgaria, Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, Estonia, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, the Netherlands, Poland, and Romania have signed that letter. And a trial of a 47-year-old Syrian man begins today in the northern German port city of Hamburg in relation to potential war crimes committed by a Syrian government militia between 2012 and 2015. The governments of 8 European Union member states said the situation in Syria should be re-evaluated to allow for a voluntary return of Syrian refugees back to their homeland. And an exhaustive rescue operation to find missing construction workers trapped in the rubble of a collapsed building in South Africa will end today after nearly 2 weeks and with 19 people still unaccounted for. 33 have been confirmed dead after the collapse of the unfinished 5-story apartment complex in the city of George on the country's south coast on the 6th of this month. A leading international human rights organization urging the Thai government to stop forcing political dissidents who fled to Thailand for safety to return to authoritarian home countries, while they may face torture, persecution, or death. And Thailand may have to consider relocating its capital of Bangkok because of rising sea levels. Projections consistently showing that low-lying Bangkok risks being inundated by the ocean before the end of the century. The Ministry of External Affairs has issued an advisory for Indian nationals traveling to Laos and Cambodia in search of employment to be cautious of scams. And India has announced a breakthrough that could boost its efforts to grow as a spacefaring nation. The Indian Space Research Organization ISRO performed a successful hot fire test of liquid fuel rocket engine that was built using additive manufacturing, colloquially known as 3D printing technology. The National Commission for Women has summoned Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's aide Bibhav Kumar to appear before it today of allegations of assaulting Aam Aadmi Party Rajya Sabha member Swati Maliwal. The hearing is scheduled today, and the Commission has warned that failure to appear in person will invite action. Police recorded Aam Aadmi Party MP Swati Maliwal's statement in connection with this alleged assault at the Delhi Chief Minister's residence, and the Supreme Court steered clear of the political talk about it, having made an exception for Arvind Kejriwal in granting him interim bail for campaigning in the Lok Sabha polls, but said critical analysis of the judgment is welcome. And according to this police FIR, Maliwal in her complaint said she was slapped, hit on the stomach, attacked and kicked by Bibhav Kumar at the Chief Minister's residence. Hours after the shocking details of the alleged assault on Swati Maliwal at the residence of the Delhi Chief Minister came out in public domain, a video has emerged that shows the Aam Aadmi Party MP in an altercation with the House staff purportedly after the assault. The Supreme Court today agreed to hear at 6 p.m. a petition by Association of Democratic Reform which seeks uploading of authenticated voting percentage data at the end of the polling day. In the plea, the Election Commission revised Phase 1 and Phase 2 data upwards by 6%, creating doubts about possible replacement of EVMs. And out of reckoning from the IPL playoffs, Mumbai Indians and the Lucknow Super Giants will look to end their campaign on a winning note when they clash at the Wankhede Stadium today. While Mumbai Indians were knocked out of the playoffs race long ago, Lucknow Super Giants' chances of making the last four are extremely bleak, even if they win their last IPL game by a huge margin. Royal Challengers Bengaluru fans are hoping that rain clouds stay away from the Chinnaswamy Stadium tomorrow when they host five-time champions Chennai Super Kings in a must-win game in the race to the IPL 2024 playoffs. Deadly heat is engulfing several northern Indian states while the south is getting heavy pre-monsoon rains, posing health risks for hundreds of thousands of people participating in the election rallies. And the Indian Meteorological Department has warned today that some areas of Delhi, Rajasthan, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh will face hot and humid weather for 5 days, with the maximum temperature surpassing 117 degrees, and predicting extremely heavy rainfall in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. In a tragic incident that shook Mumbai this month, a massive dust storm that caused a hoarding to collapse claimed the lives of 16 individuals. And among the victims was retired Air Traffic Control General Manager Manoj Chansoria and his wife, who were relatives of Bollywood actor Karthik Aryan. And he did go and attend their funeral. Bollywood actress Aishwarya Rai Bachchan and her daughter Aradhya captivated audiences with their presence at the Cannes Film Festival. Determined not to let a minor hand injury dim her radiance, she commanded the red carpet with confidence, drawing the loudest cheers from admirers. And her initial appearance featured her adorned in a striking black gown, accentuated with gold accents, epitomizing elegance. Heartwarming there as her daughter remained by her side, assisting her all the way to the red carpet. And behind the scenes, a dedicated team, including members of her glam squad, ensured her flawless appearance. She has been a prominent figure for an international beauty brand and a regular attendee at Cannes since her debut in 2002, symbolizing elegance and grace on the prestigious festival stage. Praising the national hockey team for clinching a silver medal in the recently held Sultan Azlan Shah Cup, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif ordered the formulation of a policy to employ athletes through departments in order to ensure their financial security and promote sports in Pakistan. Pakistan continued their winning run at the Central Asian Volleyball Championship, defeating Iran to set up a title clash with Turkmenistan. And Turkmenistan, meanwhile, advanced after dominating Sri Lanka. Earlier, it had also defeated Afghanistan and will face Sri Lanka in the third position match. A Supreme Court hearing on a case about changes in the accountability laws turned out anticlimactic as ex-Premier Imran Khan appeared via video link but did not get a chance to speak as a petitioner in that matter. And while the previous hearing was broadcast live, today's hearing was not. Though the origin of the screen grab could not be verified independently, appeared to match what was shown on the screen inside the room. Court staff seen checking how such an image could have been captured when phones or cameras were not allowed in the courtroom. If live streamed, this would have been his first public appearance since his arrest from Zaman Park in August of last year in the Toshakhana case, despite reservations expressed by the law minister about the Supreme Court's directives. Speaking at a press conference, it is PTI spokesperson Rauf Hassan who had claimed that over the past 2 days, Imran's security guards were suddenly changed at midnight and the hearings in the Al-Qadir Trust, Saifa and Toshakhana cases were postponed under various excuses, while the government's counsel in the Iddat case suddenly left the country. The National Assembly has today suspended PMLQ legislator Tariq Bashir Chima from today's session over his alleged abusive discourse. He delivered a speech in the assembly during which he was interrupted by Gul, who jibed that he should talk about the Bahawalpur University case instead, in which his son was a suspect. We do have the Supreme Court in Islamabad issuing a show cause notice to lawmakers Faisal Wavda and Mustafa Kamal, seeking responses from them on their recent rhetoric against the judiciary. And severe heat waves sweeping most parts of Pakistan over the next 10 days, according to the Meteorological Department in Islamabad, forecasting dust storms, thunderstorms, and heavy rains in the country's northern areas. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you. I do have your financial news, and that is coming up for you in just a minute. Stay with me right here. Let's talk about your money. I do have your financial news coming up right now for today, which is Friday, the 17th of May. The Dow Jones Industrial Average briefly surpassed 40,000 points for the first time yesterday on news of strong quarterly earnings from Walmart before ending the day down 0.1%. And it was with the Dow touching this 40,000 and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq near new records as well that investors might be looking for the next catalyst to continue to juice that rally out there. Just in time, chip-making juggernaut NVIDIA has come a-calling. The company's report is away at the end of the regular earnings season, nearly a month after Meta's, and NVIDIA's results have only grown in importance as the company's value has ballooned. It is the Dow Jones Industrial Average breaking past that 40,000 threshold for the first time ever yesterday, fueled by an encouraging inflation report. Oil has steadied, with global benchmark Brent heading for its first weekly gain in 3 weeks as economic indicators from big consumers, China and the U.S., bolstered hopes for higher demand. We do have the Justice Department yesterday taking steps to reclassify marijuana as a lower-risk drug. Short of decriminalization, the proposal, which now enters a 2-month comment period, would expand researchers' access to marijuana and allow cannabis producers to deduct business expenses on their tax returns. U.S. stocks are treading water today as they regroup for another bid to take out milestones as investors dithered over the odds for rate cuts. We do have the individual movers, Reddit shares jumping as much as 14% in pre-market trading today, not far off its highest close of 65.11 that hit in March. Shares of Reddit rose 14% today, following this partnership with artificial intelligence firm OpenAI that is expected to draw in more users for the social media platform with AI-enhanced experience and attract more advertising revenue. GameStop expects first quarter net sales to drop from a year ago as customers transition to buying video games and collectibles online, while the retailer largely relies on brick and mortar stores. And shares of the company fell 10% in pre-market trading today as it also filed for a mixed shelf offering for an unspecified size. Microsoft said it plans to offer its cloud computing customers a platform of AMD artificial intelligence chips that will compete with components made by NVIDIA. And Google has said it would introduce AI-generated answers to online queries made by users in the United States in one of the biggest updates to its search engine in 25 years. The search engine's AI answers generated by Google's Gemini AI technology offer a paragraph or two of explanation with links to the online sources that supplied the information. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announced that it would be shutting down its business-focused workplace app to instead focus on artificial intelligence and the metaverse. And Waymo, a company that operates autonomous vehicles, is under investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration as of this week. A report that was opened early in the week by the Office of Defects Investigation said that 444 Waymo fifth-generation automated driving system products were being investigated. Online home goods retailer Wayfair is opening its first namesake store near Chicago, following a string of other digitally native companies that have turned to brick and mortar for growth. This is an ironic twist for a company that became a $12 billion powerhouse by persuading consumers to buy couches and beds online. And now so it is Wayfair CEO and co-founder Neeraj Shah who said that depending on what purchase someone's make, they may prefer the in-store experience and getting to work with an associate. It looks like pharmaceutical company Pfizer will pay $250 million to settle more than 10,000 lawsuits filed over a heartburn drug it used to sell that has been linked to cancer risk. New York-based Pfizer sold over-the-counter ranitidine drugs, also known as Zantac, from 1998 through 2006. And in 2019, a small laboratory in Connecticut found that it was associated with extremely high levels of nitrosodimethylamine when heated. Netflix surprise 3-season deal with the NFL marks a major shift for the streaming giant, which has historically avoided traditional live sports investments. As part of the deal, the platform will stream 2 Christmas Day games. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, followed by a matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and Houston Texans. Saturday's 149th Preakness Stakes at the Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore is the second jewel of the Triple Crown, with 8 horses going to the post. Kentucky Derby winner Mystic Dan is the favorite, but faces some new rivals. More than 2 million people tuned in to see Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut this week, making it the most watched game in the league's history across the ESPN platforms. The game drew 2.1 million viewers across the network's platforms and peaked at 2.3 million. The social network formerly known as Twitter has fully migrated over to X.com. The billionaire head of Tesla, SpaceX, and other companies bought Twitter for $44 billion in late 2022 and announced the rebrand to X last July. Although the logo and branding were changed to X, the domain name remained Twitter.com, but all core systems are now on X.com. He also bolted onto X an AI chatbot called Grok, which was launched in Europe this week. His leadership of X has proved controversial. He's fired thousands of staff, overseen major technical problems, and reinstated accounts of right-wing conspiracy theorists, as well as former President Donald Trump. The world's super-rich club now has 15 members with fortunes over $100 billion, the most on record, as they ride the waves of artificial intelligence, luxury goods, and geopolitical shifts. The combined net worth for these people is up 13% this year to $2.2 trillion, beating the pace of inflation and the broader stock market. Between them, they hold nearly a quarter of the wealth of the world's 500 richest people. While the 15 have crossed the $100 billion before, this is the first time all of them have held these fortunes of that size at the same time. And in this club, we do have L'Oreal SA heiress Francois Betancourt Myers, as well as Dell Technologies Inc. founder Michael Dell and Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim, initially reaching the threshold in the past 5 months, and some have fluctuated around that level. Betancourt Myers became the first woman to amass a 12-figure fortune after shares of the luxury cosmetics company posted their best year since 1998, and the 70-year-old ranks 14th on the index with a net worth of $101 billion. And Michael Dell also recently saw his wealth crest the $100 billion marker after demand for AI-related equipment boosted Dell Technologies' share price to record highs. And other new joiners, including Slim, who is now 84 years old, ranks 13th with $106 billion. And the richest person in Latin America added about $28 billion to his net worth last year amid a boom in the Mexican peso that's helped to boost the stock of companies in his business empire, which range from construction to operating restaurants and shops. And there are also old names coming back to the club. Gautam Adani, who is 61 years old, recently returned to the elite group after a short seller attack caused him to lose more wealth than anyone last year. And shares of his flagship Adani Enterprises rose as global investors increasingly focus on India businesses. And leading the pack of LVMH founder and chief executive officer Bernard Arnault, with a net worth of $222 billion. He derives most of his wealth from his stake in the world's largest luxury good maker. And Amazon.com founder Jeff Bezos ranks second with a net worth of $208 billion, thanks to his ownership of the world's largest online retailer. Tesla Inc. CEO Elon Musk, who is 52 years old, has that net worth of $187 billion and ranks third on that index. And his wealth, which has fallen by more than $40 billion this year, mainly consists of his stake in the world's most valuable car market. New research is suggesting that a record number of U.S. workers are cheating on employer-enforced drug tests by tampering with urine samples to evade detection. And this research comes from Quest Diagnostics, a national drug testing company, which found that the percentage of those faking the results increased more than sixfold last year compared to 2022. The Academy of Country Music Awards held their awards in Frisco yesterday for the second straight year. The awards moved to the Star last year, and city officials said it had a $31 million impact on the economy and generated $325,000 in additional sales tax revenue. And the event consists of much more than the awards show and features the ACM Country Kickoff, which includes festivities all over the Star complex in Frisco. It was an amazing evening at the ACM Awards in Frisco last night. And the city of Dallas says that Police Chief Eddie Garcia has signed a deal to stay in the city for at least 3 more years. He had been contacted by Austin and Houston about potentially taking the same job in one of those cities, but he's in Dallas now for 3 more years. In the past few years, the city of Austin has approved the construction of thousands of windowless rooms in new apartment buildings next to the University of Texas, and most of these rooms are being leased to UT students, resulting in a deterioration of their well-being. And so this month, the Austin City Council finally voted to ban the construction of windowless bedrooms. According to figures released today, the former member of the Fab Four is the first British musician to be worth £1 billion. That's $1.27 billion. The annual Sunday Times Rich List calculated that the wealth of 81-year-old musician and his wife, Nancy Shevell, had grown by £50 million since last year, thanks to McCartney's 2023 Got Back tour, the rising value of his back catalogue, and Beyoncé's cover of the Beatles' Blackbird on her Cowboy Carter album. It is Paul McCartney, Britain's first billionaire musician. A final Beatles song, Now and Then, was also released in November and topped the music charts in the US and UK and other countries. Toyota Motor is testing the new battery electric Hilux pickup truck to assess its performance in different conditions as the car maker prepares to manufacture the vehicle in Thailand by the end of next year. And Chinese electric vehicle maker NIO launched the first vehicle in its new lower-priced brand, Onvo, which aims to compete there with Tesla's Model Y, the world's best-selling EV. Indian automaker Mahindra & Mahindra said it would invest $1.44 billion over the next 3 years in its electric vehicle unit to boost growth, even though it is now also closely looking at hybrid technology. Mahindra is India's 3rd biggest EV maker, currently selling just 1 model, but is slated to launch a new range of EVs next year. The car maker, known for its Scorpio and Thar sport utility vehicles, expects electric variants to form 20 to 30% of its SUV sales. And Praful Dhariwal from Pune caught netizens' attention after the impressive note shared by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. GPT-40 would not have happened without the vision, talent, conviction, and determination of Prafulla Dhariwal over a long period of time. He tweeted that in reply to her tweet that GPT-40 is the first model to come out of the Omni team, OpenAI's first natively fully multi-model model. And in what will pit it against fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M, Reliance Retail has inked a long-term licensing agreement with UK-based online fashion platform ASOS, which targets shoppers in their 20s. India is determined to establish a strong maritime presence and enhance trade connectivity by seeking opportunities to develop ports in strategically important locations. Sarbananda Sonowal, Union Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, said that the country aims to follow the successful model of Chabahar Port in Iran, which was first proposed during the tenure of former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and apply similar principles to other ports in that region. After Singapore and Hong Kong, Nepal has banned the consumption and sale of spices made through Everest and MDH amid concerns over traces of harmful chemicals in the products. India has crossed the $100 billion mark in remittances. In the fiscal year 2019-20, which was an election year, India received remittances amounting to $83.2 billion. However, in the following year, the remittances slowed down to $80.2 possibly due to the impact of the COVID pandemic. And now we do have India crossing the $100 billion mark. BSE, Sensex and Nifty 50, the Indian equity benchmark indices, opened in the red today, dipped 100 points, and then Nifty was around 22 thousand. The equity market staged a remarkable recovery in the latter half of the session yesterday, closing with substantial gains. Silver prices experienced a significant surge, reaching an unprecedented high of nearly 90,000 rupees per kilogram, and this increase was driven by the growing industrial applications of the precious metal, coupled with the increasing likelihood of the U.S. Federal Reserve implementing a policy rate reduction in the near future. Adani Energy Solutions has completed the acquisition of a power transmission line running from Mahan Electricity Plant in Madhya Pradesh to Sipat Pooling Station in Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh. And it is software services firm Zoho who is set to enter semiconductor manufacturing and is reportedly drawing up plans that entail $700 million in investment. The Supreme Court of India today said no writ petition can be filed against Air India as it has ceased to be a public body after the Tata Group-owned Thales India purchased 100% equity in the airline in January of 2022. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishak Dar has said that the government, under its economic reforms agenda, offers attractive incentives for investment and asked the Chinese entrepreneurs to take advantage of the friendly policies and set up labor-intensive industry in Pakistan. Being a businessman, I will invest my money where I like, said Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi. My wife has a property in London. She had a property in Dubai, which she sold. I was not a public office holder 10 years ago. Pakistan's top tax machinery is working on several proposals to eliminate tax exemptions worth billions of rupees in the next budget as prerequisites to secure an agreement with the International Monetary Fund on a new bailout package. And the government is mulling a move to introduce a carbon tax on petroleum and similar products. Amid this push for an integrated general sales tax from the International Monetary Fund to achieve the true spirit and benefits of the value-added tax for documentation and digitization. The foreign exchange reserves of both state bank and commercial banks shot up during the week that ended the 10th of May. And while the government plans to tinker with the fast-growing solar net metering policy, participants of the National SDGs Conference advised the government to include subsidized solarization, family planning, environment, and universal health in the development policy to achieve sustainable development goals under global commitments. Due to the impact of climate change and low production, exporters have reduced this year's mango export target to 100,000 tons from 125 last year. Mango production has declined for the third year in a row, and Pakistan produces 1.8 million tons of the fruit, with the lion's share of 70% coming from Punjab, followed by Sindh with 29% and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa with 1%. Due to the impact of climate change and low production, these exporters have reduced this year's mango export. The two-day Pakistan Literature Festival in Quetta has concluded with assorted sessions where speakers called for more spotlight on Balochistan's issues and the importance of cultural activities for the youth. And this event was organized by the Arts Council of Pakistan in Karachi at the Balochistan University of Information Technology, Engineering and Management Sciences, and received heavy footfall of literature and cultural enthusiasts who attended multiple sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news. I do have the final segment of our program coming up in just a minute. Stay with me right here. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the final segment of our program today. And today is Friday, the 17th of May. And I do have some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date. I'll get those to you first. And then I do want to also thank all the supporters of community radio networks. The influential English writer Dorothy Richardson, whose stream of consciousness style will influence James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, was born on today's date in 1873. And though seldom read today, was widely read and discussed in her own time. The daughter of a grocer who went bankrupt when she was 17, she was well educated and highly independent. And it was the first volume of a novel called Pointed Roofs that was published in 1915, followed by two more volumes in 1916 and 17. A review of her first three volumes, published in 1918, first used the literary term stream of consciousness to describe her groundbreaking style, and many important 20th century writers adapted her techniques. She died in 1957 at the age of 84. And on today's date, the 17th of May in 1885, for the second time in 2 years, the Apache leader Geronimo breaks out of an Arizona reservation, sparking panic among Arizona settlers. A famous medicine man, he achieved national fame by being the last American Indian to surrender formally to the United States. For nearly 30 years, he and his followers resisted the attempts of Americans to take away their southwestern homeland and confine them to a reservation. He was a fearless warrior and a master of desert survival. The best officers of the U.S. Army found it nearly impossible to find him, much less decisively defeat him. Relocated to Florida, he was imprisoned and kept from his family for 2 years, and finally freed and moved with his family to Indian Territory in Oklahoma, and died of pneumonia in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in the year 1909. But it was the Apache leader who flees the Arizona reservations on today's date in 1885. And on the 17th of May in 1943, the crew of the Memphis Belle, one of a group of American bombers based in Britain, becomes one of the first B-17 crews to complete 25 missions over Europe and return to the United States. The Memphis Belle performed its 25th and last mission in a bombing raid against Lorient, a German submarine base. But before returning back home to the U.S., film footage was shot of Belle's crew receiving combat medals. The Memphis Belle documentary would not be released for another 11 months as more footage was compiled to demonstrate the risks that these pilots ran as they bombed the enemy again and again and again until he has had enough. The film's producer was known for such non-military fare as The Letter, Wuthering Heights, and Jezebel. A fictional film about the B-17 called Memphis Belle was released in the year 1990, starring John Lithgow, Matthew Modine, and Eric Stoltz. So it was the Memphis Belle that flies its 25th bombing mission on today's date in 1943. And in 1954, on the 17th of May, in a major civil rights victory, the U.S. Supreme Court hands down an unanimous decision in Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, ruling that racial segregation in public educational facilities is unconstitutional. And this historic decision, which brought an end to federal tolerance of racial segregation, specifically dealt with Linda Brown, a young African-American girl who had been denied admission to her local elementary school because of the color of her skin. And it was Brown versus Board of Education that served to greatly motivate the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, and ultimately led to the abolishment of racial segregation in all public facilities and accommodations. Brown versus Board of Education is decided on today's date in the year 1954. Based on outcry from parents who bought into what may have started as an idle rumor, the FBI launched a formal investigation in 1964 into the supposedly pornographic lyrics of the song Louie Louie. That investigation finally neared its conclusion on today's date in 1965 when the FBI laboratory declared the lyrics of Louie Louie to be officially unintelligible. No one will ever know who started the rumor that Louie Louie was dirty, as written by Richard Berry in 1955, and the lyrics revolve around a sailor from the Caribbean lamenting to a bartender named Louie about missing his faraway love. Louis Louis, that was not quite exonerating, but also damning the tune that would go on to become one of the most covered songs in rock and roll history. And on the 17th of May in the year 1970, Norwegian ethnologist Thor Heyerdahl and a multinational crew set out from Morocco across the Atlantic Ocean in Ra 2, a papyrus sailing craft modeled after ancient Egyptian sailing vessels. He was attempting to prove his theory that Mediterranean civilizations sailed to America in ancient times and exchanged cultures with the people of Central and South America. The Ra 2, ladies and gentlemen, crossed the 4,000 miles of ocean to Barbados in 57 days. And that was the Norwegian ethnologist that sailed this papyrus boat on today's date in 1970. And after a voyage of 57 days and 4,000 miles, the ship arrived in Barbados, and the story of this voyage is recorded in the book called The Ra Expeditions and in a documentary film also. In Washington, D.C., the Senate Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities, headed by Senator Sam Ervin of North Carolina, begins televised hearings on the escalating Watergate scandal. On today's date in 1973, a week later, a Harvard law professor was sworn in as special Watergate prosecutor, and that was Archibald Cox. 5 men were arrested for breaking into and illegally wiretapping the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. It was the televised Watergate hearings that began on today's date in the year 1973. And a year later, in 1974, in Los Angeles, California, police surrounded a home in Compton where the leaders of the terrorist group known as the Symbionese Liberation Army are hiding out. The SLA had kidnapped Patricia Hearst of the wealthy Hearst family publishing empire months earlier, earning headlines across the country. Police found the house in Compton when a local mother reported that her kids had seen a bunch of people playing with an arsenal of automatic weapons in the living room of the home. And the LAPD's 500-man siege on this home was only the latest event in a short but exceedingly bizarre episode. This was the SLA, a small group of violent radicals who quickly made their way to national prominence far out of proportion to their actual influence. And it was the LAPD that raided and left 6 SLA members dead on today's date in 1974 in Los Angeles. Patty Hearst was put on trial for armed robbery and convicted despite her claim that she had been coerced through repeated rape, isolation, and brainwashing into joining the SLA. Prosecutors believe that she actually orchestrated her own kidnapping because of her prior involvement with one of the SLA members. And despite any real proof of this theory, she was convicted and sent to prison. President Carter commuted her sentence after she had served almost 2 years. She was pardoned by President Clinton in January of 2001. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it was Donna Martin and David Silver, finally, that say their vows, and on and off couple, Kelly Taylor and Darlene McKay, that reunite as the curtain closes on the teen drama that happened on today's date in the year there, that in the year 2000, it was the curtain closing on the teen drama series that was known as Beverly Hills 90210 after 10 seasons. The final episode of the show, premiering in 1990, airs on today's date in the year 2000. Created by Darren Star and produced by Aaron Spelling. And at the outset, of course, the show had focused mostly on the culture shock that twin siblings experience when they move with their parents from Minneapolis to swanky Beverly Hills. The final episode of Beverly Hills 90210 airs on today's date. In the year 2000. And then in 2004, on today's date itself, it was Marsha Kadish, who was 56 years old, and Tanya McCloskey, who was 52, of Massachusetts, who marry at the Cambridge City Hall, becoming the first legally married same-sex partners in the United States. Over the course of the day, 77 other same-sex couples tied the knot across the state, and hundreds more applied for marriage licenses. The day was characterized by much celebration, and only a few of the expected protests materialized. It was same-sex marriage that became legal in all 50 states in 2015, after the Supreme Court ruled in the Obergefell Hodges versus Hodges that states must issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples and recognize same-sex marriages performed in other jurisdictions. But the first legal same-sex marriage was performed in Massachusetts on today's date in the year 2004. Some stories from the annals of history that happened on the 17th of May. I'd like to thank all the supporters of Community Radio Networks for making all this information possible. And so I have huge thanks going out to Discount Power, to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, My Kolachi, and also the Ruchi Palace by My Kolachi, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Eggholic, Mystic Mandala, and Flash Brush Productions. For those of you who can take Indian classical vocal lessons over the weekends in East Plano, you can contact certified classical vocalist and talk show host Shanta Mishra and explore the soul of Indian music. They offer comprehensive curriculum with personalized instruction and an immersion in bhajan shlokas and folk music. Her number is 612-562-4432. shantamishra10@gmail.com, and she will be happy to give you more details about her lessons that you can attend in East Plano over the weekends. Also would like for you all to know that tomorrow the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islands are having their celebration. As you all know, it's Asian Pacific Heritage Month this month. So tomorrow from 2 to 9, there will be live music and lots of performances and plenty of culture being displayed. And this will be at 208 South Eckerd Street at the AT&T Discovery District. And we invite you all to be there from 2 to 9 tomorrow. Also, on Sunday, the DFW Gujarati Samaj invites you for a picture-perfect day filled with kite flying, games, delicious food, and a lot of fun. Kites, games, music, garba, and lots of masti. Complimentary Gujarati food and pizza for the kids. Now, all this is happening starting at 2:30 at the Westlake Park, which is on Main Street in Hickory Creek. Continuing their tradition, the DFW Gujarati Samaj thrilled to host this annual picnic and kite flying event this Sunday at 2:30. We also do have an event that is happening this Sunday at 4 o'clock. It is the Garage Arts Project in collaboration with the Indian Cultural Heritage Foundation, presenting the Artist Showcase by Vaibhav Arikar, one of the leading Bharatanatyam artists in India. An intense, calm, and immersive approach is a key signature style of his performance, and his choreography is inspired by modernity within a classical template. 4 o'clock in Plano at the Cox Playhouse Theatre this Sunday. And then, of course, on Sunday, starting at 7 o'clock, we do have the Junoon Show that is being brought to you by Platinum Productions, Ajani Records, and Diamond Productions. Make sure you're there for that at the Raleigh Underground, and that is, of course, in Irving. For more information, you can call Nafiz Hussain at 561-452-6119 for Junoon's show this Sunday, 7 o'clock onwards in Irving. On the 22nd next week, Women of Color Business Mixer, hosted by the Women's Business Council Southwest, is going to be happening as they celebrate Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Wednesday the 22nd from 4 to 6 at the Dallas College Brookhaven campus, featuring vendor tables for companies who provide products and services for women of color and a fireside chat. It is panelists Gauri Janarkar of Ayur Nutrition, Chi Win of Purpose Tea, and many others who will be part of this. Also would like you all to know that the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce is bringing to the community AICon 2024, and that's happening on the 23rd from 9:30 to 2:30. The morning keynote will be by Chakri Gautamakulla, the CEO and co-founder of O9 Solutions, and the afternoon keynote is George Baker, Senior, the founder and chairman of Park Hub. 9:30 to 2:30 on the 23rd of May at the Renaissance Hotel in Addison, and you can register at the Chamber's website, which is usicoc.org. Vaisakhi Mela by Hasta Punjab is happening on the 25th of this month at the Plano Event Center. Live in concert, Harjeet Harman, Shipra Goyal, and Gulab Sidhu. This is a huge event, and the Hasta Punjab invites you to please come and enjoy all the fun at the Vaisakhi Mela 2024 on the 25th of this month at the Plano Event Center. We also do have the 20th anniversary of the Taste of the Cowboys on the 7th of June at the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco. South Asian Business Alliance, a newly formed organization that we would love for all of you to join, are having their next event on the 8th of June, and the topic is Franchise Expo. In the Joy of Others Walk Run, happening on the 8th of June by the BAPS Charities at 3111 Olympus Boulevard. And a 2-day holistic festival of life and wellness on the 8th and 9th of June at the Plano Nature and Retreat Center. And this is by Mystic Mandala. Holisticfestivaloflife.com, or you can call Vijay for more information, 972-750-1419. Badshah's Pagal Tour at the Curtis Culwell Center on Friday, the 14th of June, and Shreya Ghoshal will be live at the Curtis Culwell Center on Sunday, the 16th of June. And there are some discounted tickets available for that at the curtisculwellcenter.com or sulekha.com. Kal Ho Na Ho with Shankar Ehsan Loy on Saturday, the 29th of June at the Toyota Music Factory. Shilpa Shetty in town on the 29th of June. And June, of course, the World Cup will keep you all busy itself. We do have in July also the 2024 Texas Super Kings schedule, and that is in the entire month of July, starting on the 5th of July at the Grand Prairie Stadium right here. Rohit Sharma, one of the modern greats of the game, is opening his Cricket Academy in Dallas. Cricket Academy's grand launch is happening on the 14th of July, and we encourage all of you to go ahead and get more information from Shalu for this hitman coming to Texas. Shalu's number is 201-245-6299. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my show for today. If there's any other information that I can help you with, my direct number is 214-675-1754. And y'all can call me anytime for any information you need about community radio networks. crn.guru is our website. And that's our show for today on this Friday, the 17th of May.